Hey everyone, welcome back to QSR Nation, your go-to source for food service marketing and business strategies for success.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of QSR Nation. And today we are we're actually recording from the Ameristar Casino here in St. Charles, Missouri at our second annual GRITT Summit. So this is our first business conference in basically 2 years now. So it's really exciting to see everybody in person again. And this is our first day of the actual summit, and I've got Anthony here with me, and we also got Jack Roldan, who's been a former guest on the show. So welcome back, Jack.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Yeah,
this is great.
For those of you who haven't heard the previous episodes with Jack, he is the CEO and founder of CD Consulting, and they do a lot of work with helping businesses with their online reputation management components. So, and I know that's a big kind of concern right now with people is, as we're coming out of post-pandemic and still having employee shortages and supply chain disruptions and all these things, how do I as a restaurant communicate this stuff so that people don't get frustrated with I looked on Google and it said you're open, but I showed up and you were closed today. What the heck?
Yeah.
So that's a big frustration for a lot of consumers right now, and for restaurant owners, because they're like, I don't always know if I'm going to be able to be open or I'm going to have to shift my hours.
Right.
So how can I help win that war of communication to consumers with Google?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? What it really comes down to is customer experience. What is that potential consumer's experience with your brand? What do they walk away with, right? And so to your point, Anthony, and I know this has happened to me multiple times, especially during lockdowns, right? Multiple municipalities across the country, regulations that equal the number of municipalities out there. So there's all these different levels of things happening. So how you create consistency is to avoid a situation where I was going to my favorite car wash. Said they were open at 9 o'clock. That wasn't the case with the pandemic. They were now opening at noon. Yep. A big difference, right? I didn't have that time to waste. What happened when I went down to the car wash? I went somewhere else to get my car washed because I couldn't do business at that time. Now, I think had I known that they weren't going to be open until later, then I would have waited until later, right? So it's all about giving the accurate information to the consumer. And so how do you do that? All of us today are searching online, right? Whether we're on our mobile phone, our tablet, or our laptop or PC, we're searching. We're searching for, what car to buy next. We're searching for, what's happening with COVID. Have things opened up? Where can I travel to? And what we're also looking for, where can I eat? Food near me, restaurant near me, right? And so when a consumer is searching for these things, it's important to make sure that you have all of your information updated regularly. It only takes a few minutes to go into Google. So this is Google My Business. So you can go to googlemybusiness.com and you can set up a profile. If you've already set that profile up, then what you need to do is you need to maintenance and optimize, right? I know that restaurateurs and restaurant operators, they're being pulled in so many different directions, right? They now have to wear the hat of chef, host, dish cleaner.
Yeah.
All of these different functions at once, right? So when do I have the time to go into GMB to make these updates? It takes a few minutes, but it's super critical because this ties directly to your bottom line. This ties into the number of consumers that are walking into your door, filling those seats, making reservations, coming in for a quick bite to eat. Whatever the model is, it's just a matter of going into the system to update those hours as you know.
I was going to say, and a good time to do that is when you're making your schedule. I mean, I know that right now with employee shortages and stuff, people are making decisions. Do I, instead of opening at 6 a.m. for breakfast, do I not open till 8?
Right.
Do I stay open till 10 or do I close at 8? And then I'm trying to consolidate these things down. You're making that schedule. To me, that would be an opportune time while you're already in that scheduling mode and then making those decisions of, am I going to have people available? Which, they could still call out. I get that. But, to be able to go in and say, okay, this is my schedule for the next 2 weeks. So if we're going to make an adjustment, I would say during that exact same time, make that adjustment for those hours on Google, so that way it gives time, because Google is an instant update sometimes. Sometimes it takes a little bit.
Takes some time, right?
So to be a little proactive in that, so that you can better, service the customers that are finding you, because there's nothing more disappointing than being super hungry, thinking, oh my gosh, I would love like this dish, right? So I'm going to go there, and you show up and they are closed, and Google says now open, like now is not open,
Right.
and
you're still hungry though. You need to still get food.
I'm still hungry, right? I still want food. So it becomes a trust issue from consumers, because you wasted their time now, right? Because they took the time, they chose you, and then you disappointed them with being closed when Google says you're open.
Right. Yeah. And are they going to give you another chance? Maybe, maybe not. Some consumers are a little bit pickier than others. So it's important to bring in those efficiencies, right? I think you bring up a great point, Anthony, that if a general manager or operator is creating the schedule, update GMB at the same time if there are changes. That way you don't have to come back, think about it. It's not a separate task, but understand the implications. The implications of this, right? So majority of searches, over 95%, occur on Google or some search engine. So it's important to cater to where the largest volume of people are going to find you. And that's, GMB. That's your Google listing.
Yep.
On top of your hours, it's important to make sure that your address is correct. So, checking to make sure that somebody else hasn't recommended an edit for your business is equally as important as those hours, right? Because if you're saying that I'm at 1035 Colorado Boulevard, but I'm really at 1035 South Colorado Boulevard, those are two very different locations, and so that's a lost opportunity for revenue to never walk through your door. So there's a lot of things that operators can work on.
And speaking of your location, people also find them, like we said, on Google or on third-party platforms as well. And so that's another one too. So if your hours are changed or whatever, if you're showing up live as open on third-party delivery, and then same thing, you're going on to DoorDash and you want to order food from your favorite place, and then you find, you go through the whole ordering process, then you find out, they couldn't accept the order. That also is very can be very frustrating. So for every platform you're on, you got to make sure you update all of them.
Right.
So
there should be consistency out there, and I think that brings up another great point, Grant, is accuracy. So a lot of people don't think that there's a difference between the word street and the abbreviation, ST period, right? For search algorithms, for Google, there is a difference. It's about consistency. So if your information and your data is structured one way and you're referring to your business on street, spelling it out each time, then you want to make sure on those third-party platforms that consistency exists. And we call that NAP accuracy, for name, address, phone number, the most critical elements required to get a consumer through the door, right? While it can be time-consuming to have to maintenance and optimize all of those different listings, right? Let's say I have my listing on Yelp. I've got my listing on Apple Maps, Google Maps. I also have something on Facebook and Instagram. That's 6 different platforms that I need to maintenance. The cost of inaction is far greater.
That's a good point.
Than the time that it's going to take to invest and make those corrections.
Right.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you either have to make the decision to either do it yourself, delegate it to someone you can trust to stay on top of it, make sure the time is scheduled to do that, or if you have the opportunity, you can even look at a third-party vendor who can actually take the time and take that off your plate.
Yeah.
I know your company does that, as well, and there's others out there, but having that consistency to be seen everywhere the same, so that way bots and crawlers know what to feed out to those consumers who are relative search, to say, hey, this is what we need to do to give them what they're looking for, right?
Yeah.
And so that way it gives those search engines the ability to do their job accurately.
And you'll just be better protected for when Google does their updates, right? You'll have your ducks in a row already. Now, you don't, you still could be penalized. I won't say that, because Google rules the world, right?
Right.
But you should be better prepared if you're keeping track of all that proactively before updates happen. So
right. The key thing to think about is the pandemic accelerated things by 10 years. We're more open to digital payments.
Yep.
We're far more open to delivery.
Oh yeah.
And we've really shifted the way that we as consumers behave.
Yep.
Because we were forced to, right? Things shut down, certain things opened up. We had so many differences in our day-to-day routines that were disrupted that it brought to the forefront all this technology and the way that we do business and behave by 10 years.
Yep, I ordered delivery for the first time this summer. Actually, I still only done it once, and it was Uber Eats. We're down at the Lake of the Ozarks, ordered some takeout, because we were just sitting at the condo and we didn't want to drive somewhere. I mean,
it's
we
convenient.
Had a few drinks and you don't have to get out or anything like that.
Exactly.
And but if it wasn't for COVID, I still would have done that. I would have never ordered, just because it wasn't my personality to do that. I wasn't used to it. So
well, and a lot of people were in that boat. As we've talked to different restaurateurs or CFOs even of larger companies.
Yeah.
And we hear that. I don't know that it wasn't that I didn't want to order delivery. I didn't have to.
You didn't have to.
And so I would just say, okay, we'll just get in the car and go. It was not a big deal. But then what happened was when you couldn't get in the car and go, it became a big deal. Mm-hmm. And now that you're back to where you can get in the car and go, people are saying, you know what? That saved me a lot of time. I mean, I may have paid a premium price with some of the delivery fees or whatever, but I got time. And I always say people can make more money. They can't make more time.
Yeah.
And as we talked about that, that acceleration that we saw in the industry, it was an acceleration of convenience as well.
Yeah.
Because I think that consumers were able to quickly realize that, because I was one of them. I would order, DoorDash or Uber Eats to be delivered to my house before I left the office. Mm-hmm. And then literally I get home and it's either arriving at the same time I am with my kids, or I've got the picture confirmation that it was dropped at my front door through my, instructions. And we literally pull up, get out of the car, grab our dinner, walk inside, eat, boom. I just saved an hour and a half of my night because I'm not prepping anything, I'm not having to, cook. I mean, it's done, and I saved on dishes too because we just throw that stuff away when we're done,
That's a big
It's about convenience,
yeah.
right? So not only did you still get your same favorite dish from your favorite restaurant, but like you said, you got your time back. It's convenience. We're now thinking about things in a whole different perspective to say what's going to be easiest for me.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, that people really have a different outlook on life since the lockdowns, since the start of the pandemic. They're looking at what matters most to me. What matters most is not waiting an hour outside of a restaurant. I can still get a similar experience, right? And maybe that's not the experience I want each time, but it's about options, right? You go to Amazon, you've got tons and tons of options. It's about giving the consumer the ability to choose.
Yep, absolutely, because there's some nights I do want to actually go out and, I know that it's been a long time since I've plugged, Texas Roadhouse, but I love that place. But there, I would just assume, I don't mind waiting there because I use their apps and I give my estimated time. It tells me to arrive at around this time. I'm there usually 15 minutes early. I might have to wait 15 minutes beyond my time, but that's a choice, right? That's my option,
right?
But also, if my kids are like, hey, can we get whether it's Champ's Chicken from the location down 2 miles from our house or Taco Bell or whatever, guess what? Boom, do. And my kids have DoorDash on their phone. Yeah. They have Uber Eats on their phone. They have those apps are already right there. Yeah. And now with the easy opportunities with even use Google Food Order, completely disrupting the world as well.
Right.
I don't even have to have an app anymore. So those are all additional options I have. I can either go get in the car, or I can keep it home and have it dropped off so I can do other things.
Yeah.
With whether it's with my family or cleaning.
Well, like you said, so there's a premium price with those delivery platforms, but still with all the food shortages we're seeing and stuff, food prices are higher anyway. So as consumers, we're more conditioned, we're expecting to pay higher prices anyway. So now if you're a business and if you're considering about getting on third-party delivery and you're worried about the higher cost, well, people are experiencing higher
Yeah.
costs everywhere. So I mean, there's not much there's nothing you can do about it really, and people are more accustomed to it than ever before. So
Well, and that goes back to, because of all the higher food costs and higher employee costs and employee shortages and supply chain shortages. At the end of the day, this is why taking the time and scheduling the time to actually go ahead and get that Google My Business listing dialed in, stay on top of it, make sure that you are managing it and monitoring it, because the last thing you need in any time, especially times right now, is to be missing out on business.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just Google. It goes well beyond Google. There are hundreds of directories, lots of search engines. We know that there's multiple social platforms. It's important to have your brand featured across the board. It is important to have that digital footprint so that as people are searching for different terms like food near me, restaurant near me, best food, very generic terms that are not tied directly to your brand, this is how those people are going to find you. And I think you bring up another good point, is that in this post-pandemic world, or post-lockdown world rather, it's important about learning how can you optimize your business. What can you do to create better efficiencies to operate within the dynamic that we have today, right? As you mentioned, labor shortages, supply chain shortages. I'm familiar with a restaurant back home that they were a very trendy, hip restaurant. It was a dine-in only location. Well, obviously, like a majority of restaurants, that wasn't an option during the lockdown.
Right, yeah.
So a lot of people had to shift to takeout and delivery. Well, this particular restaurant still maintains their same dine-in experience, but what they've done is create a whole separate business model that focuses just solely on delivery, solely on pickup. It has its own special menu. They've managed to not only build back their original business model, but now they have two, and revenue has increased substantially. So it's about getting creative and thinking about what can you do with the resources you have, but most importantly, how can you play to? How can you ensure that you are meeting people's customer experience expectations and the way that they're doing business today? So some things to keep in mind.
Absolutely. I mean, that kind of goes along the line with the ghost kitchens and the virtual brands and all these little pop-ups and stuff, which we'll save for another episode. But, when you have those different opportunities, things like this with managing your listing, let people know your menu offerings have changed or what's available as an enticing opportunity, and that you're open or that you're not, at the end of the day, you can determine whether or not you're going to be able to stay in business, because the last thing you want is to disappoint customers repeatedly.
Right.
You might get away with it once, and people understand, but if you're not spending the time and investing the time to do these things, then that's where you can get in trouble.
Yeah, customers are ready. They're ready to. They're more. What would you call it? Like, they're willing to try something new now more than ever, and they're also probably, the loyalty could be as low as it's ever been, because they're breaking habits. Everything's changing, so it's a double-edged sword. It's the opportunity to get more customers, but it's also, you better have your stuff, all your details and everything, have it all straight. Otherwise, you could be losing customers if you're not. So.
Pay attention to what the reviews are saying. Look at your online reviews. Make sure you're responding to every review. It's not just a great customer experience that helps you to tell your story, but it helps Google to understand that you're vested in your business, and it helps Google to understand more about what your business is. But reviews are essential, not just to bringing new people through your door, but to really enhancing your operations. If you start noticing that staff performance is dropping and people are not satisfied with service, well, then you have that opportunity to change that culture within your restaurant, within your operation, right? So there's a lot of information that's readily available with those reviews. It's just a matter of taking the time to synthesize and understand, what's the consumer saying about us? Why do they love us? Or what can we do better? And how do we make it better?
Exactly.
Well, and a great point to that, a review, is write your reviews out ahead of time so you can try and keep your emotion out, because the last thing you want to do is fire back a defensive or even possibly an additional antagonistic review. Get it. It's your business, right? And you're not going to let anyone attack you when you know that the situation may not have occurred like it was put out there on Google for everybody to read. But be smart. Be smarter than the emotional individual who slammed you.
Yeah.
Whether good, accurate or not, good, bad, or indifferent, have written out, pre-thought out, logical, unemotional responses other than, hey, we appreciate it, sorry this happened, thank you for bringing it to our attention. If it's a bad or if it's good, man, we really appreciate you choosing us tonight. Can't wait to see you again.
Yeah, I feel like you would be a really good review responder, Anthony.
I gotta admit, I love it when Google caters to my ego and tells me I'm in like the top 3% of review followers on Google. I mean, there's a lot of people on Google, so when I get that, I'm like, yeah, I like that. But again,
You've
that's
got your badge.
That's the stroke of my ego.
Yeah,
So,
negative reviews can happen, but the best thing you can do is just respond nicely. But a response is very important. No response is also not good. So
No response is not recommended.
Yeah.
Even if you're just saying thank you for your feedback and nothing more, you want to put that check in the box.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, it looks like sessions are going to be getting out here in a minute. It's going to get a little louder in the background, so we'll wrap this issue up, or edition. I guess it's not an issue. It's an edition and a podcast, a segment. Man, I don't know why. It's been a while since we've done this.
So we'll just say thanks for tuning into this episode of QSR Nation, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Be sure to join us again for the next episode of QSR Nation.